Hello, everybody. It's Advent Nebula.
And Cruellica Kain.
And we're here with Pop Culture Therapy. We hope you enjoyed our Halloween month specials.
And this time, we're actually going to get into a topic that we need to have a very special guest for. And this topic is physical media versus digital media.
And we're physical forever! The slogan of limited run games as well.
It is?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus, I
Just
didn't know that.
Look at your No More Heroes thing right there. Yeah, where we record the video games are right next to us. If you look, let's see. Doesn't it say?
Yeah, right on the back.
Let's see. Where is it? They don't actually have it on here. But yeah, their motto is like physical forever or something, or physical will never go away or something
It's
like that.
just physical forever.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So the reason why we're talking about this topic is because in recent...
I'd say the last 6 months it's really accelerated.
Oh, it has. And...
Basically, a lot of your companies are just moving to making physical media a collector's market item and not anything else.
yeah, for example, I think with the video game that you were just referencing a couple of days ago, GTA, the remastered collection, it's coming out physically for the PS4 and other systems, but PS5.
Yeah, apparently there's no... Oh, by the way, this is Kaiju no Kami, if you didn't know the awesomeness that you were hearing.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, apparently the PS5 version does not have a physical release. Every other console except PS5. So I'm wondering, does this mean they're going to package it with the GTA PS5 version then? Or are they just banking on that enough people are going to use the PS4 disc in their PS5 system that they're not going to bother repackaging it for two different consoles?
Well, and then there's what Ubisoft is doing with Far Cry 6 right now. It's a 62.5 gig game. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X discs only have 500 megabytes on their discs. They're making you download the entire rest of the game. Why did you even put out a physical copy if you're doing that? Or why didn't you just put the whole game on the disc?
But... what?
Yeah. That's just Ubisoft.
But you're still going to need the physical disc to play the game.
Nope, once it's downloaded onto your system with this version, you don't even need the disc.
So they're basically doing the PC route where you just activate a key code and download it. That's...
Well, and the frustration with it is that there's a tangibility that comes with having a physical
So
item.
does this mean you have to be online at all times to even play the game?
I don't know what's going on with that as to that, but the digital version has outsold the physical version 8-1.
Well, okay.
Well,
And I'm going to play the counterpoint with it.
digital sucks!
Even though I don't like
Digital sucks!
the counterpoint is really the fact that a lot of people feel like there's limited space in their homes. And with so many items of technology allowing for you to store immense amounts of data, like let's think about the whole e-reader. That has been popular for years. And we both do e-books,
Yeah.
but we also like our physical books.
I just don't have space to actually buy physical books where I live.
And that's one of the challenges that I think a lot of people look at when they come to digital media, is that if you don't have the physical space, this is an alternative that allows you to have portably every piece of media that you want.
And as a fan of light novels, many of your light novel publishers don't even make physical published books anymore.
There's very few that do. Overlord is one of them, and Vampire Hunter D.
Basically, if they're going to be a physical release on their books, it's a well-known light novel title, plus they're releasing them in hardback.
Exactly. And they're doing it in that specialty scope. And that's where the frustration comes in, because you have diehards like Kaiju no Kami, and I live with him, so...
And I'm one that loves a physical video game collection just because of the value of it. But on the flip side, I see where emulation's starting to become the way if you want to go retro now, with the way a lot of your older games just don't get taken care of anymore.
Exactly.
Pretend, since you can't physically see it, pretend that you are looking at a big shelf full of PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, or not Game Boy,
Are
DS.
you going
3DS.
somewhere?
Somewhere, yes. I'm looking at a vast video game collection. And you can touch it. You can let people borrow it. You can say, damn, that looks awesome. Seeing every Zelda game I own on that shelf, just like right there. And every freaking Metroid game I own on that shelf right there. So you physically have it. It's gorgeous. You can't get that with digital. All you have is a freaking little screen on your TV that says, yo, dog, you kind of own me, but not quite. But I'm going to let you play me for right now.
Well, and okay, that's a really good point.
Yes.
So, with the digital versus physical, and yes, we are swaying more toward pro-physical, but we understand the caveats for both sides.
There is no caveat for digital.
Okay,
No one should do digital.
The two of us understand. You, bar none, don't. But here's the one...
Because there is no purpose for
But
it.
here is the one challenge when it comes to digital. And he made this comment. Do you actually own it?
If you read the terms of service agreement, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
And
You read when you buy these downloads for digital, you need to read the terms of service on that specific title.
let's say, for example, let's use Universal. I don't anticipate anything bad is going to happen. But let's say Universal as an organization goes kaput. And not kaput where somebody can buy them, but goes kaput and all of their digital software, like everything they put online, disappears. What happens then to your content?
It's gone.
Because yes, you can download, but you're downloading a copy that can inevitably disappear. Think of like the online games, even for those like big fish games. Let's use them as an example. They produce like the strategic games where you can find hidden objects and stuff like that. You pay for a license. If they lose the license to that game, they have to take the game off because they don't own it anymore.
Well, okay, and then the argument is, well, as I have an account, so since I already paid for it, it's mine forever. Well, okay, but what happens if you lose your account for some reason? Maybe you did something and your account gets banned. You lose everything that you have purchased on that account.
Or if somebody steals your account, which happens to people all the time, you can't get that back.
Well, that's exactly it. And I know from an experience, I've had my Netflix, which I have a pretty good password for my Netflix account. It's until like twice, thankfully not recently, but twice, somehow somebody, because where there's a will, there's a way, somebody hacked into my account. And thankfully Netflix as an organization caught it, but not every organization is that good at catching things.
And that's why I've started to set up 2-level authentication.
Exactly. And then the other challenge
Which is also a hassle in its own right. I mean, it's already bad enough sometimes having to log into a million things, but now having to log in twice to do stuff?
or log in 3 times depending on what it is. Like my banking app, it can take up to 3 layers just to get in.
I have 2, but one of them is one of the most secure ways to get into the account. And I think anybody who has a smartphone knows what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And so what goes on with this is the question of what is truly secure and do you actually own it? At least with a physical copy, You own the game. Yes, there are ways that companies could lock the game if they really wanted to, but generally that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
All they lock is you not being able to get any new updates or anything like that. Look at Final Fantasy XIV. That game, even if they take certain servers down because certain things are obsolete, the game in and of itself still exists.
Okay.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy XIV is, and I play it, it's probably one of the best Final Fantasies. Yes, the only way to get a physical version is to have the PlayStation 4 or 5 version, but it's one of those that's like, you even know this game's going to be around probably for years upon years in, considering Final Fantasy 11 is going on 20 years, it's still running.
Okay, let's take this for example. What is it? Destiny. As Silverquill mentioned, they're replacing one of the Destiny expansions with a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Because the old expansion was under Activision. Activision owns it.
They own the rights to
They're
it.
fully shutting down those servers, which means anything people paid for that expansion is lost. Are they going to compensate people for losing all that work? All the money they've invested in that?
No.
No.
Why should they? And it's a terrible thing to say. And I am looking at this from a business perspective. I will use Advent and Kaiju to look at from a person perspective, but from a business perspective, you paid me for your license. Buyer beware. I made my money.
And
I
there
can
was
easily walk
something
away.
in that terms of service agreement when a Bungie and Activision split that ended up allowing that to happen.
Well, okay. Recently, what was it? Earlier this year, Amazon said just because you've bought a digital copy does not mean you actually will have
lifetime access
for forever. You may not be able to access it after a certain amount of time based on our contract. Like, they just straight up admitted, no, you don't actually get access to it if we don't have the license. Then you lose out. Yes, you paid money for it, but that's your problem.
But this also goes along the lines of the streaming services.
Yeah.
This is another form of digital entertainment. Yes, you're paying for a subscription versus you're paying a whole bunch of money just for that item. But even then, things come and go from those services all the time. Look at Netflix. Netflix was the streaming service du jour for years.
Yeah.
And then everybody got a clue and said, hey, let's make our own.
And what's coming out of this is they really pick and choose their own original titles if there's going to be a physical release or not.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing. It's like Stranger Things, for example. We have season 1 physically.
Yep.
But who knows if seasons 2, 3, 4...
And the upcoming final 5th season will actually get it.
Because there's two issues that go along with it. And this is where it comes to the collector's market aspect. Is there enough demand for people to buy it? Because you do have a lot. And the reason why we say a lot is because it is booming. Where a lot of people say, well, I can get it online. I can watch it anytime I want. Why am I going to buy a physical disc? Whereas our logical brains are saying, yeah, Netflix currently owns Stranger Things, but their server space is not infinite.
Yeah.
And yes, the internet is big, but they still have to have physical items to be servers.
And you aren't going to stop the pirates from putting this stuff online to replace the fact there is no digital
Exactly.
available to buy version or a physical copy.
Another example. Hasbro recently removed Power Rangers from Netflix for almost every Power Ranger series.
I thought Netflix was getting it.
They are all
They're
futures.
getting the new series.
All future seasons are going to be exclusives to Netflix.
But they don't have the license anymore for the older series.
Oh.
Only Mighty Morphin and a couple of the recent ones. And right now, there's no, even though Hasbro has said their goal is to eventually have every season up on their YouTube channel to watch for free, Right now, unless you own the physical discs, there is no way to watch the majority of the seasons that are between Mighty Morphin and I think it's
it's Samurai. I think it's the is the last.
But so people right now are like, well, how can I watch Power Rangers? Well, you probably should have bought those discs when they were available, even though not every season was released, because Super Mega Force was released on video, but I don't think Dino Charge was released on video.
No, Dino Charge has not had a physical release.
And it's like...
And Beast Morphers hasn't either.
Well, and neither has Ninja Steel, and it's like, okay, how are people supposed to watch? Like, people are like, well, how will I watch it? Well, you're going to have to buy the physical discs. Maybe you should have bought that instead of relied solely on digital.
Well, and here's another thought that comes into mind. There are a lot of classic television shows.
And there's some classic movies that have never seen a physical release, or they have not seen
they have seen a physical release, but they have not seen a digital.
Yeah. Or the last time they've seen a physical release was either the VHS or the early DVD days.
Yes, I still own a couple of those.
But, even Shout Factory stated in one interview earlier this year, one of the reasons they don't do digital copies with their movies is because they will not own the license to that movie forever. So they know the digital copy will not be valid forever.
Well, and that's the flaw, and that's where the challenge is coming in, because more video game companies, more movie companies are bargaining on this aspect.
And Disney is seeming to really double down on it now.
Well, think with Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because are they going to do physical copies of WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier?
They have only available to buy digitally for their episodes of these Marvel shows. They right now have no plans for a physical release.
The thing is, though, how big Marvel is, I could see them releasing those physically.
But how soon?
Yeah.
It more comes down to, what about the lesser stuff, like the non-big titles?
Well, that's exactly it too, because you also have to think of the collector's market with the physical, because physical is becoming that collector's market because they're only doing it for the people that they think want it. Because if you look at, for example, Criterion or even Arrow Video, they do, or Shout Factory, for example, do not mass market their products.
They aim strictly towards a collector's market.
Now, they will make extra copies because they know more people will buy it if they see it, but they don't go out of their way to produce like what Disney does with their Marvel movies, where they produce millions of copies.
We're talking maybe several thousand to maybe in the 10,000.
And what the guy from Shout Factory even said in that interview is most of these days, though, you get physical buyers by including specialty items with their products. That's why every release they do comes with a limited edition poster for the first, I think it's 10,000 copies or 2,000, something like that.
Arrow Video, the first releases come with usually some kind of specialty bonus booklet or a special case for their releases.
Exactly, and that's how they get people. And it's sad because if you think about it on the flip side, if we look at the digital aspect, is that there's a pay to access. And this is for streaming services or to purchase those movies. Like iTunes, for example. To watch things on iTunes, you have to pay per item. You don't get like a wide subscription.
Unless you end up doing Apple TV and then willing to fork over $20 a month. Which Apple TV, if you don't know, it's the most expensive of all the streaming platforms.
And it doesn't have enough content to justify. Then
the Apple bros will justify anything.
Yes, I know that. And it frustrates me because one of our friends is an Apple bro. But, and then you have, let's use Hulu is the next. Well, actually, HBO Max. They're like $14.50 a month. The only reason I see them being successful with their model is because they are releasing movies in theaters and on the service simultaneously. So for those individuals that do not want to pay the admittedly sometimes exorbitant price to go to a movie,
Hi, I've been doing that most of this year.
then they're going to take advantage of that service.
And and if you're an Amazon Prime member, 2 weeks after they've been in theaters, if you haven't seen it yet, a majority of the films that are not Warner Brothers or Disney, you can rent in theater for $10 to $15 through Amazon Prime.
Well, you can do the same thing via Comcast.
There's another issue, though. HBO Max, they do not allow 5.1 audio on a PlayStation. Its only output is stereo. So if you don't go see it in theaters, you are missing out on the 5.1 aspect.
I have it through my Vizio TV, and I actually can get the 5.1, but I don't have a 5.1 sound system.
Right. On your TV, sure. But on the PlayStation, you can't access 5.1 audio. So also, there's limitations based on the platform.
So, the reason why we're focusing on this is, one, I do respect people who have no other choice.
Then there's people I respect that look at it from the environmental perspective.
There's the carbon footprint. The carbon footprint, that you are reducing your carbon footprint.
And I know these are the same people that defend NFTs, which that'll be a topic for another discussion.
But admittedly, are you really reducing your carbon footprint that much because of thinking about the whole Silicon Valley? Because the more people that use digital, the more servers that have to be created, the more servers that have to be created, the more electricity that's used, the more fossil fuels that's used.
And California isn't exactly known for wind power yet.
Well, that's just it exactly, though. They keep saying, that's why I don't agree with these environmental things. Oh, well, this will save on environmental stuff. Not really, because you're just changing, you're still polluting the environment, you're just changing how you're polluting it.
No, it would be interesting to see if there was a true-to-fact study to show the difference between buying physical media versus digital, if there was actually a true impact versus that mental feel-good. And I do respect. I'm not taking away. I respect people for their choices. But if it's kind of like you have to weigh the consequences. Yeah. Now, admittedly, I will continue getting physical as my option because at least I know then I have the capability of watching it or utilizing whatever it may be. And I know I'm kind of a hypocrite in a way too because I do like digital books. Yeah. But if I owned every single physical book I have digitally right now, we already have 5 bookshelves of books.
You don't have much room in here left for books.
And that's my books. That's not including what's in this toy room where we're recording.
Yeah.
Which has
all the omnibuses that are owned.
So, if I physically owned every one of my books, and I hope to at some point when we get a house to have physical books of everything I've got digitally for that security, but I would have an entire library because I'm a bibliophile. So I understand for that. But when it comes to movies and video games...
Yeah, I'm one of those that every time either Strictly Limited or Limited Run ends up putting out a game I've already bought digitally with a physical version, I'm snapping up that physical version as soon as it goes up for order.
And my biggest fear is when companies, like what happened with Fox, thankfully Fox did not have a streaming service prior to incorporating with Disney.
Well, they technically did with Hulu.
Well, yes, but Hulu at least was partially owned by Disney. It was like a conglomerate.
It was 5 companies. Now
Yes.
it's down to 3.
So that's different. But, okay, Crunchyroll, for example. Let's utilize Crunchyroll.
Which is going to be absorbed into Funimation next year.
But here's the question. All of those titles that are in Crunchyroll were only licensed for streaming. Obviously, Funimation only does streaming of what they own or what has been owned by, expensive company.
AT&T.
No. You buy Fate from them.
Oh, Aniplex. So it's Funimation, Aniplex, and any Sony titles. Obviously, JoJo's. Well, JoJo's now, the license went from Viz to Netflix, which I'm concerned on.
I'm very concerned on that. But what I'm saying is that all of those streaming shows that are on Crunchyroll that are not owned by anybody actually in America, you won't be able to view them anymore.
Which
Technically, you won't.
There are some stuff right now they're working out with between Viz and Sony and Funimation, but we aren't going to know the hammered out details of that till the full takes place
And
next
they
year.
have all played well together in the sandbox. Sony and Warner Brothers don't necessarily play well. Obviously, Sony doesn't play well with anyone, but neither does Warner.
But funny enough, Sony plays great with Microsoft because Funimation has exclusive titles on Xbox, which I find really weird.
But that's a huge fear. So for anime fans, if you like your wide variety of subtitled content that you've been enjoying off of Crunchyroll for years, it's going to be gone soon. Because
What it's going to come down to what Viz takes and what Funimation decides to take. All the Crunchyroll funded original titles will fold into Funimation.
yes, that will fold in. But
There are a few that Viz already owns the license to, so they'll go there, and Viz has already teamed up with Funimation for streaming their titles.
which is good. But at the same time, there's all those other titles that aren't owned by anyone.
Yeah,
that they were just streaming.
And it's like, is Sentai going to grab them or not? And that's...
And there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
So one thing recently, though, Netflix has actually started to partner with Shout Factory to release their anime titles physically.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Evangelion is their first.
Evangelion, and they're
Well,
also...
we're not talking about Evangelion ever.
But also, yeah, they're in talks because Shout Factory, since they now own the Studio Ghibli movies, they've got the...
Oh, yeah, they own it now.
They've got the new Lupin the Third movie, the CGI one.
Mm-hmm.
They've now opened up their own anime select department.
Yeah, G-Kids has been actually really good releases.
So it sounds like Netflix is actually, because of how well the Evangelion set has sold, they're fully partnering now with Shout Factory to do their anime stuff.
Well, and then
see,
we'll have to see if Viz still keeps a hold of JoJo's with Part 6 with them.
Well, same with Sailor Moon Eternal.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where the question comes in. Because, as we mentioned earlier, there's still a pay to enter. And I can honestly say there have been many times I've wavered on, am I going to keep Netflix? Is Netflix worth it? And every time I start to sink down that rabbit hole where I'm going to
Get rid of
cancel,
it. They bring something out.
and
where
it's
you're
like, you sons of bitches!
Yeah, they bring something out where you're like, well, crap, I guess I have to wait until after that comes out before
Because
I can.
Paramount Plus. I have the cheap subscription right now.
I thought you only did the 30-day trial.
I did the 30-day, I did another month just because I'm catching up on Ink Master. But even then, they have a shit ton of content. Paramount had...
Wait, I thought that you were watching that on Pluto.
No!
Oh my god.
So they have a lot of content there.
And wait, but you're paying for it and it still has commercials in it?
I'm paying for the cheapest version possible.
Well, you're basically paying for the $6.99 a month that has
No,
a commercial.
less than that.
That's ridiculous, though. Still getting commercials when you're paying for a subscription.
Remember, Hulu, even at Disney Plus's $18 a month package with ESPN, you still have commercials.
I'm grandfathered in, like I am with Netflix, or not Netflix, with
Funimation.
Funimation, at the lower rate. And see, that's the other thing. Unless you've had these subscriptions forever and a day, if you get them now, like Paramount Plus without commercials, it's $12.99.
Yeah.
I like the amount of content they have, but I am not paying $12.99.
And see, I got Disney Plus with the ESPN and Hulu
Disney
package.
Plus is the only one that I've seen that's actually legitimately worth the cost.
No, I kind of feel like right now Hulu is proving that they're worth the cost to me.
And Amazon, just for their shipping, has proven the cost
But
to me.
I still have to watch Amazon.
Okay, the other thing though, physical. Okay, I buy this $50, this $60, $70 video game. I buy this $30 movie. I don't like it. I'm gonna go sell it to somebody for $20, $25, $50. It's a video game.
Recoup some of the cost you lost.
80%. That you just take away. Okay, the percentage I didn't make back is the percentage of me watching it, playing it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Digital. Okay, I bought this game for $70 digitally. Wow, this game sucks. I don't want this game.
You can't return it.
I'm stuck with it forever because I can't get rid of it. I can't sell it off. I can't even let friends borrow it to see if they like it. I'm stuck with it. It's there until they say I no longer have
the
this
only exception I've seen on the game side is the fucked up release last year of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, that was just, the game was so bad they had to offer refunds across the board, digitally, physically.
But that is a very valid point. If you get something that you don't like because you haven't watched it before, what do you do? Or you haven't played it before, or what have you?
Like somebody said, oh, well, Steam now allows that if you don't like the game within 2 hours, you can return it for your money back. What video game in this day and age can you really get a feel for in 2 hours?
A lot of your indie games you can, but
that's like your tutorial. That's like your tutorial level. In Yakuza, that's not even the first chapter sometimes.
Well, that's exactly it. And the other thing is, for me, I get into these moods of, what do I want to watch? And I, for the life of me, have always hated channel surfing. Even early on with cable, obviously cable's been around a long time, but I'm old.
Annoying.
Channel surfing was a nightmare.
57 channels and there's nothing on.
No shit. And so I would rather physically walk into a room, look at my collection like, what do I want to watch? And grab something.
So the downside is, what do I want to watch?
Oh, no, that's your downside.
An hour later,
No, once again, that's your downside.
Let's see. Well, I only have 2 hours now from the 3 I had, so those movies are all out.
No, let me just say this for context. That is not everyone's downside. That's Kaiju no Kami's downside because he can't make up his goddamn mind to save his life. If you were pitted between a guillotine and a hanging, you would be going back and forth on the options the entire time.
Or he'd be like James Franco, first time.
Are you kidding me? The guillotine would be more entertaining because at least there'd be blood.
But that's how you are. So, yes, we're incredibly biased towards physical, but
I basically, with digital, it's like if it's down to last resort, or I'm not willing to fork over $75 just to own something that I could probably find for a cheaper price, but it's going to be used.
Okay, now the one thing I will say that I do ease up a little bit on digital is if I do already own a physical copy of something.
See, and that's the same I am too.
Okay, I own physically the Grand Theft Auto trilogy on the PS2, which actually I have another thing to talk about with that in a moment. I own it physically on the PS2. I own it digitally on the PS3. I own it digitally on the PS4. I didn't mind buying it digitally on the PS4, mostly because I bought it with cards people gave me for my birthday. But I physically own those PS2 copies. So I don't mind having the PS4 versions digitally. Now, people are bitching because Rockstar just removed all the digital versions of the GTA trilogy because they have the remastered collection coming out. And people are bitching like, what the hell? Now I can't buy San Andreas digitally anymore. Well, that's what you get for if you didn't care about it before. Why do you suddenly care about it now? Is it because it's gone now? And you know what? Buy the physical copy on the PS2 because like they can't unless they press newer versions of the discs. If some songs have been removed from the digital version, those songs, if you're buying an older copy, will be on the physical disc.
Well, the same thing happened when Burnout Paradise got its remaster release from its PS2 version. There were several songs that EA didn't have a license to anymore, so they couldn't include it.
And that's another thing. If the game uses licensed music, that means they can remove the music at any given time if it's digital.
Well, they can remove anything.
So, but back then with PS2 discs, what was printed on the disc was it. Downside is if the game was glitched, you were fucked.
Yeah,
like Blood Omen 2.
And then you had to try and find another version of the disc that wasn't glitched.
But it's like with digital, well, that Grand Theft Auto is a perfect example of, well, as you can see, it's not going to be available digitally forever. PT is not available digitally forever.
Yeah, the only versions of PT you can find are on old PlayStation 3s that still have the demo. And some of those go up on eBay for over $1,000.
Which is ridiculous. Well, I sold my backwards compatible PS3 after I got it repaired by Sony for $500. Which was $100 less than I paid for the machine 2 years beforehand.
I still hate you for that. I still hate you for that.
Hey, it's not my fault that was a bad night.
But anyways, I feel as though it's buyer beware.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable in the digital aspect where you know there's a chance that you may not continue having access to either items on the subscription service that you normally enjoyed, that it could go away, or that if you buy something digitally, that something can happen. Things can be taken down due to licensing. Things can be taken away due to contract renegotiations or people going bankrupt. If you're comfortable with that risk of not having access to things, that you don't mind it, then definitely. Because people pay for movies all the time. So you could, or in movie theaters, it's basically the same cost in a way. You're just paying for like 3 or 4 tickets.
And then
or 2 or 3
when it comes to video games, PC emulation is going to be the only way some of these games actually survive.
Okay. The only thing I can agree with digital on are like operating systems or like Windows and stuff. Why would you need a disc for that? For those
Microsoft Word, the Photoshop programs.
Those, except I don't like that they now have turned those into a subscription-based service. But those
at least GIMP's still free.
You don't need a physical disc for any of those. Those are things that
they usually come preloaded on computers anyway when you buy them nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And yes, for classic video games, there are times where you're only going to be able to get that through a digital means. And not even through the legal version of a digital means all the time.
Nintendo, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So if you're comfortable with those risks, and I don't mean it in a derogatory manner, but if you're comfortable with those risks, then continue doing what you feel is right, because that is your choice. But the same thing for us. God, I'm going to knock on wood before I say this. The world could burn down. And everything we have can go up in flames. That's why I knocked on wood. We have that risk because we have tied ourselves to physical. So there's always risk no matter what you take.
But EMP could wipe out everyone's digital.
A solar storm could knock out everybody's digital.
But then we wouldn't be able to use a goddamn television anyway. So we'd all be screwed. Not just digital versus physical.
Well,
everybody would be.
Not necessarily, because those can still be repaired, but your digital collection, if it's been wiped out of existence...
Oh, you mean when I, accidentally wiped out your 2 terabyte hard drive? That was a fun night. So that's the other.
Twice.
Oh yeah, I did it twice to you.
Because you first actually, well, no, it was not you direct, but reformatted the hard drive the first time. And then
2 terabytes worth of data. God.
And then the hard drive just stopped working like 9 months later.
Yeah, that hard drive just went kaput completely.
Mm-hmm.
After I had recovered almost every Toku show I had on there.
Yeah, I thought he was going to divorce me.
And then that hard drive just died for no basic reason, because I came over the day it died.
So, there's risks to everything. It's a matter of what you feel comfortable with, and it's a matter of what you want to do. We're not going to make the decision for you. I can't even make the decision for myself because I live with an anti-digital person.
Yeah, I sell my digital copies off usually.
So with that said, I think we're done ranting and raving and sharing Kaiju's opinion most profusely. And we are going to now say goodbye. And our next podcast is actually going to be on the benefits and flaws of the MCU universe.
Yeah, as Eternals is about to come out, it's a good time to talk about this because it really has changed Hollywood for better or for worse. It's really up to the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to share our opinions on how the cinematic landscape has changed because of MCU.
That, and as much as I love the MCU, after like Phase 2, if you've seen one Marvel movie, you've seen them all.
Exactly.
Because I love them, but they've all become the same formula over.
And that's what we're going to get to next. So hopefully you'll check us out, and bye! Really?